Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and with me is my partner, Jen Wilson. Jen, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And we are here to talk with HR professionals and anyone working with talent, then also the individuals listening about this idea of monkey mind. And we've written about it. We've talked about it in the past. I don't think we've talked about it on an HR huddle. And a colleague of ours just said, maybe you guys should talk about monkey mind because I was feeling very discombobulated today and trying to make a list of what we needed to do and what we needed to talk about and just try to manage everything. And it was just completely overwhelming to be able to prioritize and pull it out of my brain. And that's because we've got a bunch of monkeys in there chirping. So we'll define what that is in a minute. It can help with this feeling of overwhelmed or maybe when you freeze, like you can't move. But we know a lot of peak periods are happening right now. There's a lot of deadlines. Jen and I were just rattling those off before we came on today. And so we know that that's happening. Lots of projects do if you've got a lot of internal initiatives that are occurring. And so we thought maybe it would be a good time to stop and, talk about this idea of monkey mind, define it, and talk about some strategies to help overcome it and quiet the chatter of those monkeys so we can be more productive, more calm in doing so. So, Jen, anything you want to add to set that up, or do you want to start by defining it?
Well, so both. How about?
Okay.
Because monkey mind is when your mind is jumping from limb to limb, tree to tree, branch to branch, in search of different things, but not totally remembering why I came to this branch, so I'm going to go to that branch. Or maybe I remember why I went to this branch, but that one's screaming at me and I have to go there. And these are all these thoughts that we have. They're things we're remembering we need to do. They're ideas that we have. There's something I need to tell someone. It's all this stuff, clutter in our minds. And it causes like a hyper multitasking that isn't productive and can be pretty anxious making, overwhelming, stressful. And over time, it is visible. People can see you, kind of jumping all over the place. Either it shows up in a meeting while you're in the middle of talking and you can't keep your train of thought, or you go off on so many tangents, or whatever it might be. It becomes visible at some point to other people. That you're kind of out of sorts, maybe is the way to say it. Overstimulated. I don't know. Like there's 40 different nice adjectives that we could use for it, but the bottom line is you seem off somehow. And so in this classic monkey mind dilemma, we all get it from time to time. We all live probably with a little bit of it all day, every day, just because of the number of inputs. If you just think about monkey mind for a second, and you think about like Teams messages and Teams reminders and emails and texts. Monday.com reminders. And, like if you start to list the number of digital inputs that you're getting to remind you, calendar notice,
Yes.
All the stuff that's already kind of coming to you from your electronics before your mind starts saying, hey, I wonder how so-and-so did over the weekend, or, all the stuff. So we're sort of set up for it as a state of being, but it can get really out of hand. And we thought we would dedicate this discussion to managing it. And you're not going to stop it.
No.
Okay. But you can quiet it. You can calm it down. You can organize it. You can make you less anxious, for sure. And the other thought about this is, in terms of adding to your setup, Tamera, was the idea of, we don't talk about it. We don't disclose it. There's a stigma or something. When it's happening to us, we feel sort of bombarded with all the thoughts and inputs and ideas rolling around, but we don't stop and tell anybody. Like Tamera said today a couple times, hey guys, she didn't say to me discombobulated. I wish I could remember what she said exactly, but it was I'm underwater. She said, I'm underwater. And it's just because she just has too much. And it's not just work too much, it's all the too muches. And so we all get there. And so I want to encourage us all to have an open environment where we could say, hey guys, I'm overstimulated, or my brain is on overdrive, or my monkey in my mind is going berserk, and I need a little quiet time and a little organizational time to get it together so that I'm not jumping from thing to thing.
Yes.
And so, Tamera, maybe you take us on a strategy or two.
Well, and when you were just describing that, I think so. Two things. One, I think saying it out loud and having permission to say it out loud to get rid of the stigma, first of all, can like provide some relief right there.
Yes.
Okay. So like just saying that. And then, because then there's like support. Well, what do you need? What can we do? What can we take? Right. Like immediately there's some support and relief.
Yes.
But then I can say, all right, I've got all these monkeys jumping around, and it feels like I've got, I don't know, 500 lists, and they're each like managing one, and they got a group of their own monkeys managing each one. And I just need to pull them all down and say, what do I need to do first in each of these areas? So for work, and our operations team has been doing this for a while. Every morning they huddle for 15 minutes and say, what are their top 3 things that they have to get done today? And it helps them organize themselves, but also support each other. But we could do that individually. Like, what do I need to get done at work? So one of the things that is causing me to feel overwhelmed is taking care of my mom right now. So what are the top 3 things I need to do, for that? Like get a neurologist appointment. Like I could make the top 3 list. And I think that is helpful to see you don't have to do everything that is coming at you. That's like, I think that's one of the first steps for me, is to say, what are the must do's? Because the rest of it will all be there. And I should write it down so I don't forget, or, put it in my, whatever my tracker system is, whatever that form is for you. But if we can just get that out and written down somewhere, then we can look at it objectively and say, okay, where should I start? Which ones can wait? And that can just, again, provide like some breath and relief right there. So I think that's where I would start, Jen.
Yes. So, and I would start even before then. I hear you about that. And you said it'll always be there. Like if I should write it down, even if it's not a priority, it'll always be there. It will. It'll come back. Right. It might come back in the form of a oops, sorry, where you have to apologize for somebody when it comes back. But if it's not a top 3 thing, it's okay to let it go if you can't stop and write down every little thing the monkey's saying. So I like that. But I'm going to start even before that. 2 things that I know for sure will help me calm my monkey down. And I have an 8-month-old
monkeys.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe. I like to think of it as just one really
loud, big one.
Yeah. Hyperactive one. But I have an 8-month-old pup, and she's about 1,000 times better behaved if she's tired. Mm-hmm. So I can fatigue my monkey out and put it on a slower motion, my mental monkey mind, if I meditate or exercise. So exercise is for me running, or like hot yoga sculpt, or vinyasa, something pretty hard and something that requires focus, and something that my mind will start saying, why are you doing this? This is hard and hot and horrible. And it will stop jumping from limb to limb and just focus on that activity. So that's huge for me to get it centered and calm it down. And then afterwards, I'm much more linear and much less cluttered. Yes. And I can decide what to put in. So exercise is one like strategy before I center on the top 3 things. I think I would be better and faster able to produce those by category, like Tamera said. What do I have to do for my mom? What do I have to do for these people, right? The second is, and we discovered this when the pandemic hit, we started meditating as a group using the Calm app. And what happened for me out of meditation, even if it's just a 6-minute meditation, I felt like I was going through a car wash, with my brain, and somebody was using a really good like chamois or something and wiping all the junk off of it. or pulling all the Post-it notes off, or I don't know what you
Right.
want to picture it as.
Clearing the slate.
Yeah, he cleaned it off. The
Yes.
dry erase board that I have in there that had the rantings of a lunatic that had so many comments on it I can't even read the whiteboard in my brain. It wiped it off and made it so that I could decide what to put on it.
Right.
And I thought that was the most amazing focus thing I've ever done. So I just want to suggest those as a couple monkey
Yeah.
mind before anything else work related, or before you make your first calls or your first outreaches to try to get some of your activities, most important strategies or things done. You could organize yourself a little bit by cleaning it up in there.
Well, and my monkeys went go, oh my God, that's one more thing to do. And you were going through that. And it's good. I did yoga twice this weekend. So I intentionally did that because of the state I was in. So I could not agree with that strategy more. It was so helpful. And it feels like you don't have time for those things. But in the middle of the day, you might go, I can't stop and go do, yoga, or I can't stop and, meditate. Now, a 6-minute meditation, we would argue you can. But even if you don't feel like you could do that, you could breathe. And we don't get in touch with our breath, but that breathing, like 3 really deep breaths, has a similar effect to that washing and cleansing. Might not be as intense, might not be as lasting, but in the moment you could start there, because then I can say, okay, now what? Because you have a moment. It is huge and it's so simple and we minimize it. So, and also I think there's a stigma around that. Like, I'm going to sit at my desk and take 3 deep breaths. And it's like, yes, if you're not, step outside for a moment then, you know what I mean? Like, but we should normalize that too.
I agree. In fact, today we had a meeting and we were talking about some, wild stuff and doing a little bit of what if scenarioing. And I was worried that my team might be starting to get agitated a little bit. And I said, okay, let's all take a deep breath.
Right.
Just because that can, calm things down a little bit and make you feel a higher sense of well-being just by putting a little more oxygen in the bloodstream. And when we are anxious, or when we are, really allowing a lot of different ideas in at once, I think you breathe more shallowly.
Yes.
More from the trachea up instead of from I tell my daughters, take a breath from your toes, please, and exhale it all the way back out your toes. I want it to be that deep. And man, you're right, Tamera. That's just the simplest way to get it together. The other thing about the writing the top 3 things, I do think that as you were starting to say, I have to write down 3 things that I need to do for my mom. I need to write down 3 things that I need to do for this client. I need, the top 3 things I need to do for those of you who are facing the deadline, many deadlines right now. And is when you do that, often, not always, you see something you could ask someone else to take instead.
Exactly.
And so part of not getting it down on paper or in Word or in a journal or, dumping it somewhere, part of holding it and letting it bounce around in your head is not knowing that there's some things on this list that could easily go to someone else. And I could leverage so much better, but I don't even know who to ask for what, because it's all just jumbled. And so anyway, that's an idea. It's just to recognize part of that, write it down. And if it can't be delegated and I'm not going to fit it in, then do I need to drop a quick email and reset expectations? Or could I just put it over here in this huge later list? It's not urgent anyway. And they don't care. And they're not, if I sent an email and said, I'm not going to get to it till next week, they'd write back and say, okay, like they weren't expecting it. Can I just make a huge later list and just feel better that it's over there and stop letting it run in my brain, because now I've captured it. But I just think that list making
is huge.
It's irritating. I know there are some people that are like, in the time it takes me to make that list, Tamera, I could have done one of my tasks, so there are like the anti-listers out there, and I get it. But in this instance, if you want to calm monkey mind, the list is part of the game.
It's crucial. It's crucial. And people want to help. I think that's one of the things also is I don't want to make that list. People are busy. I don't want to bother them. I don't want to feel like I can't handle
Mhm.
it. Like we've got all kinds of stories that add to the chatter. And Jen and I were just facilitating a workshop recently, and my mom, was in the ER, and I was like, kind of triaging, and she was like, "Why don't you ask Jenna, my adult daughter, who happened to be off on Thursdays?" She goes, "Have her step in." And I called her, and she's like, "I would be happy to." And she managed the whole day. It was awesome. And then she's been checking in with me and saying, "What else can I do? If you need
Oh,
something, ask." Like she's like, "I want to help. I don't know how." And that was just huge for me. I just people don't know how to help. And if we could give them specific requests to do so, specific things, and it could be options, but it might be this is the thing I need. Like that was the thing I needed that day. I needed somebody to triage and be available so I wasn't, being interrupted on the phone and could be present with my client and with Jen. But she was just like that made a difference for me to know exactly what you needed. And she's like, if there's other things like that, she's checked in. And Emily on our team wrote a great blog that I think we should include, and it's called "I'm Waving My White Flag." And it is like that permission to say, hey, I'm over my head, I'm underwater, and I need help. And I might not even know what kind of help. Maybe I just need help organizing, figuring out my priorities and resetting expectations, like you said, Jen, et cetera. But I think that's a great way, to ask for permission or grant permission with your team members is to say, hey, I'm waving my white flag. What do you need? Let's get in there and take a few minutes. And it really doesn't take that long once you get in there. But I think we have all of that chatter. Part of that chatter over there is I don't want to be a burden. I need to look competent. They're busy. I don't want to, all of it. So I think that's huge to make specific requests.
I love it. And waving the white flag is a surrender. I surrender. And you're not surrendering like failure.
Right.
You're surrendering like my load is officially untenable by myself. It's official. My bucket of stuff I have to work on or do or solve or people I need to reach, it's too full for one human. That's all that is. And we tell people when they join us, when we orient a new employee, I say to them, and I do sometimes the cultural orientation, and I say, we're kind of nuts at Convergence, and you are going to get your bucket filled all the way to the top and overflowing. And I will know you are fully in the team when you are so full with the bucket full of work that you wave a flag and say, hey, no more assignments, and who will take some stuff? Then I know you're in. And it's not abnormal.
So,
And it's okay. And we don't want you to be overflowing and choking out, but we won't know. We work completely remotely hybrid. We won't see the wear and tear of the too many assignments. All assignments are really electronic anymore. So it's not like I can look in your desk and see all those files that you have. That's all
and then I know
gone.
you're overwhelmed because I can't find you.
Yeah, right. If I could come in the old fashioned office and go, wow, you got a lot in here. But now it's all electronic, it's invisible. So we just have to normalize and make acceptable the white flag. It's expected. And you'll never have optimal, perfect work scheduling where everybody's at exactly the right level. You'll just never have that. There will be people who have too much. Sometimes it's our own fault, incidentally. So, one other thing I just want to put out there is part of what we have to do is also manage and say more of the word no. Sometimes the bucket's full because I said yes to everything, even though I was suffering from monkey mind, overwhelm, underwater. Should have waved the white flag. Instead, I just kept saying yes through gritted teeth, twirling my hair. Yes. And then I blow up. And so, the word no, it's your friend. And great leaders
Yes.
say no more than they say yes. They say no more than they
Yes.
say yes. They choose what's in scope and they say no to the rest. And so it's okay. And having that be a cultural norm. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no, not now. No, how about next week? No, could Caroline do it instead? No, I'm unable to do that work at this time. I have a third party that I could refer you to. There's lots of
Right.
ways to manage that, but you don't have to just keep letting an unlimited flow of new things into your bucket for monkey mind to just persist as a regular 24/7 way of being.
And I think, Jen, we're worried about people.
Yeah.
And I think, part of the reason we wanted to raise this conversation today is because many of you that are listening may be experiencing it like we are, like I am. But also we think many of your people are, and it might be people, within your team, but it also might be, people in your different service areas or other operations teams, or, just we need to check in and say, how are you doing really? And, how is your workload? What, requests do you need some help prioritizing? How are the deadlines looking? How are you feeling about those? Like there's some very specific questions we could, do to check in, starting with how are you? But,
How are you really?
right. How are you really? And, have the permission and feel like they can say, what the answer is. And then we can figure out where to go from there. We can figure out how to navigate. We can tell them that. We can say, hey, we'll figure out what to do with wherever you are. It's fine. And we might need to reset expectations with some clients. We might need to spread the work out differently. We might need to, back burner some of the other priorities that we have. We have lots of options. So if we could talk about those things, I think that makes a difference. But we've talked about checking in, periodically at different times. And we think right now, this fall, with all the various deadlines, with everything else going on, adding pressure and, monkey mind with the news media, political environment, Jen has been saying the spongy market, there's lots of worries, there might be health, people might have other health concerns you don't know about that's going on with family members, that they're not, maybe openly sharing about. We just have no idea what's going on with people. So it's really important to stop and check and ask, get your career advisors, your managers, your partners, to get assigned a few people and check in the next week here. And how are you really?
And even if all it was after that or before it maybe is, I want 3 minutes with you. I think we need to take 2 or 3 huge breaths together.
Right.
I don't even care if we talk. Let's just do a little breathing together.
Yes. Yes.
That could really open up the talking.
Yes.
So I love that, Tamera.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to take long, but just letting people know they're not alone and that they have support and that they can ask for assistance.
So we'll provide you some resources and articles. You can read them yourselves, share them with others on your team. Let us know your thoughts on this, how you manage your monkey or monkeys, and any strategies that you have. We welcome them. And we hope you have a great, wonderful week and enjoy. We'll see you next week. Thank you.